And I was going to say live, but that's so cliche. And I've done that 1,000 times. And I feel like I got to get a little bit better at this. Got to get a little bit sharper. Got to get a little bit more entertaining. But thank goodness I have the great D. Grant Smith here today. Take the edge off me. This guy's got a much better radio voice. I'm going to kick it right over. D. Grant, what's up, baby? What's up, man? Welcome down.
Dude, it's such a delight and a joy to get to have this space with you, man, and to get to talk about storytelling and talk about stories. And I appreciate the high praise. You've been delivering faster than Amazon can high praise to me for the past several days, and it's just blessed my heart and my soul in such deep and amazing way. Oh.
There might be a reason for that, sir. And for anybody who's watching, The Resplendent Window will be one of the greatest reads you ever treat yourself to in this lifetime. Or not.
Wow. That is super high praise. Well, since you're doing that,
stop it.
And this is not just because like I'm trying to play tit for tat necessarily with Geoff, because that's kind of unfair. But he's been talking about this book on LinkedIn in particular for a little while, and I felt this kind of nudge inside of me over the Christmas holidays to buy 2 books from friends of mine that are authors, and Geoff is one of them. And so he and I have had a couple conversations talking about consciousness and talking about spirituality way outside the bounds of religion. And so honestly, I ordered your book, dude, and it sat here on my table for about 5 weeks. And then 2 weeks ago, almost to the day, I got this little kind of kick in the pants, metaphorically speaking, inside of me. Now's the time to read this book. I started it and I could not put it down. Now, I'm going to say this about your book, Geoff. There are only 3 other books. I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of fiction and nonfiction. In the realms of fiction, there are only 3 other books that had the impact and the effect of magnetically sucking me into the story to where I did not want to put this thing down. I stopped, in a way, skipped working on some projects that I probably needed to work on faster because I wanted to know where the story was going to go and how it was going to end. And I knew that there was a book 2. So I was really excited about getting through this one, but like I didn't want to stop reading this book. So if you are somebody that understands how consciousness actually works, understands that we are, and my book is like this too with storytelling, we are more than these human physical vessels that we show up in every single day. And there is a heaven that, yes, exists in the quote unquote afterlife, but also exists all around us. And you want to go on an adventure to discover that side of yourself that exists right here in the present. Geoff's Path to Perfectia is that book.
Well, it's not going to get better than that. So on that note, folks, thanks for coming down. It's been great. Wish you all a beautiful evening. What's up, Lisa Marie? Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining us today. And those of you out there, you should definitely check out Lisa Marie's live stream every Monday night. You want to get back in touch with that same soul that D. Grant is talking about, because that's what it's all about, folks. This is about walking, as Ram Dass said, we're all just walking each other home. And that is what D. Grant is doing with The Resplendent Window. It's a series of vignettes that will literally help walk you home. It's what I try to channel through the Path to Perfectia. And that's what we're going to do tonight when we talk about your story, the story. What is your story? It's all a story. And that's the beauty of it. So we're going to jump right in, my friends. Daniel, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for coming down, man. It's good to see you again. So we're going to start off with a simple premise. We're already talking about books, right? So let's just rock, man. Friends, I want you to imagine your life as a book. D. Grant, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see that? Like imagining your life as a book.
I did a meditation today. I think that this taps in. You and I are both superhero nerds, science fiction people. And when I used to think about the idea of my life as a book, I instantly would think about like, okay, well, what are my powers? And what are my abilities? And what am I here to do? And what is my purpose? And what is like all these like things that have to do with trajectory and mission and all that stuff. And I think that that's kind of a big part of what we do in the space of business and blah, 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 blah. But there's something so much more fundamental to who we are as individuals and who we are as collective energy pieces occupying this space and zillions of other spaces. So when I think of my life as a book, it's no longer one volume, and now it's like this Library of Congress times a million. Like it's not each book is like kind of its own page. So like imagining if Wikipedia, which I guess that's maybe a pretty good example, like Wikipedia plus the Encyclopedia Britannica back in the day, that used to be the source for all information, and like Google.
War, man, that's the only way to sell it.
Yeah. So life as a book is it's all of those things, because there's I mean I'm a big multiverse person. So like there's this version of me. I'm not sure if this version of me in this space and time is the same version that was here yesterday. So that my imagining my life as a book, not only every day is an adventure in this like cool episodic thing where like there is no end to the story, but kind of like in the Resplendent Window, when you get to what you think is the end, it's actually a new beginning.
Yes, it's like there's like a rolling nature to the entire thing. And the beginning and the end are just illusory, because you look at any story. I think Star Wars really captured this really well. So 1977, the first movie comes out. And everybody back then looked at it and said, that's the first Star Wars movie. Like that's the beginning of the saga. Then Empire, then Jedi. We have our original trilogy. And like, all right, well, that's the Star Wars saga. People believe that until 1999, when that monstrosity that will not be discussed in next company came about. And then it forced us to examine something. Now, wait a second. Now, was that the fourth movie or the first movie? Did that happen after or before? But it happened before, but it came out after. So we had to first start examining this. What does that even mean? What does the past, present, and future even mean? Is there a past, a present, or a future? And then the after movies came out, and they were slightly better than the monstrosity, but not a hell of a lot better. But ultimately, we had to come to grips with this question. So as we think of our own lives as a book, as this story, a lot of people, if you ask them, when does your story begin? Everyone will have a different answer, but most will you generally come around, when my parents met and then they got busy in the backseat of a Buick in 1978, and here I am. Cool. Okay. But what happened before that? And before that, and before that, that all influenced your story. What happened, in Poland in 1511 and in West Africa in 1472, that influenced it too. That all influenced it. And before that. So it's fun to think about from that broader perspective, right? Your life is this book, but when does the book begin, end to end? Does it? Can it?
Mm-hmm. I want to tell a brief little joke. I think you'll appreciate this. I'm going to, if you're on Instagram, I'll send you the little video link, but I saw this really cool video. This is the second time I've talked about this today, actually. It's Darth Vader interviewing these two guys to join the Empire. One of his questions is, count to 9 in George Lucas. And the guy goes, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Correct.
That's literally it. So I'm thinking about, well, first and foremost, Sia. Welcome, friend. Good to have you with us. As always, you the best. It's really fun to think about. Think about LinkedIn, okay? Now I want to put something up there for those of you who are not raised in a biblical background. This is directly from the book of Genesis 1:11. In the beginning, there was LinkedIn. And I think we all know that. I think that goes without saying. But we all look at, now let's actually take LinkedIn for a second. Let's actually play with it now, right? So with LinkedIn, we have people who have their banner and they tell you exactly what they do and who they do it for and like how they are supposed to be known. And yet the crazy thing about it is just a tiny, tiny, tiny fractal snapshot of the entire story that never began and never actually ends. And yet that is their personal brand. That is who they are. That is what they are. That is how they're known. That is what they do. And they're attached like hell to that thing. Never strike you as nuts?
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because you have probably one of the most creative and kind of, I don't know if it's tongue in cheek, but forgive me. It's almost kind of like you're giving the finger to the system with your banner image of your construction worker. That like, this is just a guy. It doesn't mean anything.
Random construction worker that has nothing to do with anything.
Because yeah, and I played around with mine. I had superimposed my face on Superman's body and then Doctor Strange's body with some creative messaging to describe the way that I tell stories and impact businesses. And I've since changed that. But yeah, I think it would be an interesting thing for us to kind of discuss here is when we talk about storytelling, especially since we're bringing up LinkedIn. And by the way, if you have not been following Geoff's story arc on what heaven is like according to LinkedIn in the afterlife, that's probably some of the best reading you will find online, period. But I want to just like dive into the idea of storytelling in business is something that people are starting to come around and see the value of, but now it's becoming this trending sort of thing. So the quote unquote influencers have their little methods of how you should do it. And they've got their like wise words of wisdom, which is all really basic stuff. From my perspective, and I'm curious what you think about this, dude, but like from my perspective, what makes great storytelling anywhere is asking great questions and exploring space. It's that thing we were talking about right before we came on the air. Geoff showed the cover of my book. And I get all kinds of compliments on the cover of the book, but really, I had this idea in my head that I pitched to the people that formatted the book and did the cover design. They're honestly their original output to me, but they gave me after I kind of gave them a vision and said, "Hey, I'm giving you total artistic freedom to create, but here's kind of this rough outline vision." The thing that they initially gave me was the most boring thing I've ever seen in the world, and I was not proud of it at all. I'm like, I don't want to be like talking about this collection of stories that I'm super passionate about, but has this cover that's like, that's all you got, dude.
Yeah.
And
well, I recommended to him, by the way, so you're welcome for that, sir.
Well, but here's the thing. I told my story of trying to come up with a cover design to a good friend of mine that works in publishing, and she tinkered with the idea of what I shared with her, and she gave me back something that's very similar to what is on the actual cover, and I sent that to the people, and they're like, "Oh, cool, now we can see it." What I'm referencing here is that, like, with storytelling, what makes great stories is artistic freedom, yes, but also some kind of parameters for us to fit this ever-expanding idea of creative expression into that gives us a little bit of security and strength and mold to operate with. And at the same time, not try to fit into boxes. What do you think about that?
I think that's the most interesting paradox of it, isn't it? And that's one of the cool things about a good story is that the ability for it to exist in paradox. That's the hallmark of a great thought, is to exist within paradox. And you could say, yes, and that's right, but that's also right. And on one hand, you need the storytelling ability to go in any direction you want at any time you want to take it there. But on the other hand, you also need some kind of a structure that's not a box, but it's almost like a malleable box. It's like we're going to have a little box of this one nugget of the story, but then the box is going to change shapes and change sizes and changes the way it's going to rock based on where the story evolves. So like, okay, the story's going to go this way now, which is going to be a strange shape. And maybe you grew up near Chernobyl. That's a terrible joke. I don't care. So maybe like grow up this way, but now the box is going to like grow up around it and the box is going to look like that, but it's still going to be inside of a box. So it's still going to make sense. You know, so I think about your book, and it's a great collection of stories, and each one of them is different from the other, but there is a connective thread. And that's the beauty of it. And that's the box that you've put, from my perspective, from your book in, is that there is the source consciousness, that love, that light, that connectivity that flows through everything and that shows up everywhere. And then in each one of these stories, it shows up powerfully in the form of one person or a messenger or representative or an animal or something that just shows up like, aha, it's me, but it's also you, but it's also me. Mm-hmm. And that's like that box, but the box evolves to hold the shape as it continues to grow. And that's what I got from it. And it was awesome.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah. For me, I think what makes great stories is what resonates with something inside of here, the heart space. We can and I think the imagination, actually, my girlfriend and I talk about this all the time. The imagination isn't just in here. The imagination is also in here. Because if you're feeling it, you're tapping into your imagination. Like, feeling is the language of the universe. And the language of the universe itself is ever expansive. That's imagination. That's God. So, but when you feel it, that's when you know that it's something that's really meaningful. And when you're not having that emotional connection, then I don't know about you. I do this when I'm watching the countless amount of TV shows and movies that are available on any streaming service. It doesn't matter. It's like you could spend hours just scrolling through the options that are available without ever picking anything. But once I select something, I typically give it the 10-minute test, which is, in 10 minutes, if you haven't hooked me in some way with this right here, there's way too many other things for me to invest my energy in or tell my own freaking story. So, that pull has to come from in here. And for me, that's what makes great stories. And that doesn't matter whether it's entertainment or it's something that you're reading in a nonfiction book or it's something that you're reading online. That's why I'm thankful for the algorithm of LinkedIn in a way. You were talking about in the beginning, there was LinkedIn. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with LinkedIn, and the word came through LinkedIn and said, algorithm, this is how you're going to work. And I believe.
Hey, friend.
So I'm thankful for me that, and I don't know if this is your experience too, but my feed is full of people that I resonate with and I connect with. And I trust that whatever shows up in my feed is something that I'm supposed to be experiencing and encountering, and that the algorithm is working in my favor.
I think it's interestingly working in all of our favors all the time if we're willing to lean into it and just see it for what it is. So let's say your algorithm is feeding you a bunch of really, really polarized stuff. And I'm talking the fire-breathing, ranting and raving indignance that always ends with do better. I don't know why. It always just I'm waiting for the first person in human history that's done better because somebody wrote do better in a post. But if you know that person, send them into the live chat. Let's bring them on as a guest. Don't think that person exists, but they might. Who knows? So that's a lot of what, I used to see and a lot of what people still see. Now, I still think, though, that actually serves an important purpose. Again, if you're willing to see it. So if that's all you're seeing in your feed, what it's saying is that you are feeding the algorithm of indignance and of rage and of division. You are feeding it with your likes and with your shares and with your comments, which is a reflection of where your consciousness is right now about any given thing in the world. That's a check engine light for your own present state of consciousness. So is it serving you? Hell yeah, it's serving you. And if you're seeing a lot of stuff of light and love, that's great too, because that's also a check engine light and that's showing you where your consciousness is. If all you're seeing is that, if that's the only thing in your feed, maybe you floated a little too far out to 5D and you got to get back to the humans a little bit too. Maybe that's also your check engine light. You got to get back to the people who are hanging out at the bars and Isabel and I talk in the bowling alleys and, who are on their journey and trying to make their way through and still be able to connect in this 3D thing we call Earth, because you're still playing the game here. And instead of, bugging off somewhere in the middle of the Himalayas and just calling it a day. And if that's your thing, God bless you. But I feel like you came here. If you didn't start out there. Maybe you weren't meant to end up there. Maybe you were meant to bring the light here versus just disappearing into the light while you're here. So I think no matter what it's showing you, there it is, there you are, and there it's supposed to be. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, dude. Yeah, sometimes I think I can get kind of not sucked out, but like get too far removed from the present reality and attempts to transcend like problems or things, like honestly, a big thing that I've been transitioning into and like operating more in is abundance.
Yep.
And like letting go of so much scarcity, lack. But at the same time, in doing so, I can sometimes not be fully present in the moment with myself, with other people, and I'm becoming more and more aware of that. So yeah, spiritual bypassing. So I think that's a big part of what this can do. So I say this in my book, and you say it without using the same words in your book, but awareness is 90% of the work. And awareness is also like something that once you're awake, once you're aware, like there is no sunglasses pair that you can put on that will like shield your eyes from what it is that you're actually able to see. And you can try to turn away, but you're not going to be able to, and you certainly can't go back to sleep.
And you can try. And they certainly tried in the Matrix, man. And there are moments in your life that'll kind of bring you to your knees, and you almost wish you could, but then you don't at the same time. And the hardest thing, and tell me if you've experienced this too, is after your first awakening or second or eighth, depending on whatever, 68th dark night of the soul, however many times you got to, go around this tilt-a-whirl after a fifth of Jack, whatever you got to do. There's like that moment when you just have this, God, I would give anything to go back to just one of my old coping mechanisms. Just one of them, just for an hour. But you can't. You literally can't. You can't have a conversation like with an old friend about a certain thing you used to from this state of consciousness now. You can't drink it away the way you used to. You can't screw it away the way you used to. Pardon the puns. It's actually not a pun. It's just being really crass. It's fine. You just can't. But you can't do these things like whatever you used to do to like just make you not feel it or think it. You can't do it anymore. And now you just have to be with it. Like, what do you do in that situation?
Man, I'm learning how to sit in the tension. And something I've learned for the past probably 3 or 4 years, actually it's come full circle in a lot of ways, is sitting with my emotions and my body and feeling it and letting it express itself for whatever it is. Like I read this really cool thing last week that I've been learning on like an energetic level, but I haven't learned it I didn't know it and understand it in English. Now I'm understanding it in English. Yep. But basically it's like I spent a long time, dude, maybe you've done this too, like suppressing emotions.
Oh yeah.
Not letting myself feel things. Like that was something that was modeled to me by my parents and grandparents and other people. And so coming full circle and realizing that, okay, I've got all of these trapped, like I put my own emotions in handcuffs and chains and like locked them away in some sort of like purgatory prison cell. And they decided that they weren't going to do that anymore and that there was going to be a mutiny. For me, that was what my second dark night of the soul was like. And dude, it was like prison break. It was terrifying. But what I learned from that experience, and now like I'm still in this process of like when things aren't just hunky dory inside, like I'll feel something in here, I'll feel it in my solar plexus, I'll feel it in my feet or in my back or something, and asking, like, just telling whatever it is, like, hey, you're welcome to feel. Please express yourself however you need to. I'm here. I love you. It's okay. And sometimes it will communicate with me and I'll understand what it is. And sometimes it's just the release. But I'm understanding that emotions have to feel fully in order to release. You can't just transmute shame and guilt into joy and love like that. Like it's got to feel itself out so that it can change and morph and alchemize. And so that's been my experience with this whole transitionary. Like the old coping mechanisms don't put the blanket on that stuff anymore. Like what I think part of the awakening of consciousness is now like being conscious of that. Being conscious means that you have to go through it. You can't bypass it anymore.
That's the thing, man. There's this misconception, and I'm sure it was sold to you the way it was sold to me, that awakening is this great ticket out of the jam. This is the express train into your problems being behind you, because now you've got the brand new perspective. Baby, you're good now. You're good. Nothing to worry about anymore. You're all set. You get the higher perspective. You're grand now. You can see the forest from the trees and every other cliche you want to throw at it. Now you're feeling great. There's nothing else to worry about, except that is not the beginning of the end. It's the end of the beginning. And that's when the real fun begins. And that's when you better strap in and get ready. It's like, when you're on a flight and you're about to head like directly into the cold front and the seatbelt sign goes on and you realize like, all right, there's just no way out but through. Let's dance. And that's it. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing you can do. Just strap in and hold on tight. But that's where the magic is.
Yeah.
Inside of that pocket.
I spent a long time avoiding pain. And then I learned how to lean into it. I'm still not necessarily like excited when it like revisits and I realize, oh shit, I've got to do another trek through the volcano again. All right, saddle up, let's ride, But I'm curious what your perspective is on this, because here's another part of the story for me. As somebody that has become more and more aware and awakened of consciousness, energy, purpose, all of those things, I have wanted to pattern my journey in a way after people that I just highly revere, who are massive teachers of mine. One of them, and I reference him a lot in my anthology, Wayne Dyer. I heard Wayne Dyer talk about self-actualization. And I used to listen, he's got it's kind of like an audiobook, but it's him exploring a book that he wrote called The Power of Intention. The audiobook is 6 discs long. And I have literally listened to all 6 discs on repeat, probably 300 times. That's no hyperbole. Just cover to cover, end to end, road trips, all kinds of stuff. I heard him talk about self-actualization, and I remember praying to God, saying, if Wayne Dyer was self-actualized, I want to be self-actualized. And Spirit was like, you sure you want that, dude? I'm like, well, if he did it, he's my hero. He's such a powerful teacher that's revolutionized wrought great healing and raised consciousness for millions of people. Like I want to have that same sort of thing. Okay, dude, be careful what you wish for. I understand that crap now, but I'm curious, in your story, have there been things that you've asked for because somebody that you highly regard and highly revere have excelled in that, and then you realize that with great power comes great responsibility?
Funny you asked that, because all the things that I've ever asked for, I've not gotten. And I'm damn glad I haven't gotten them in retrospect, because I mean, you want to talk about somebody who was lost in 3D, Jack. I mean, lost in the game, lost, where all I ever wanted were all the material fixings of this world. I realize I'm not alone in that. And damn near everybody on the platform of LinkedIn is right there. It's the essence of this platform, not to dog it. Met a lot of great people here. But there's a real truth to that. And that's the top of the mountain. It's like if you get the followers and you get the business and you get the money, and that's all I cared about. Growing my business to be this big, giant monstrosity and becoming a best-selling author. And years before that, even becoming a world famous comedian. I remember, during my comedic heyday, if you want to call it that, in the early 2000s, I was performing in clubs all over the country, and I was in Vegas with my family for a week. And I'm walking by the Mirage, back when they had Danny Gans performing every single night, and his big face was on the Mirage. I remember looking at that, standing there with a big shit-eating grin on my face, and I said, that's going to be me one day. That's going to be me. That's what I want more than anything in the world. I want my face plastered up there. I want to be at the Mirage as a resident. That's the top of the mountain for me, man. Nothing could have possibly been better. Nothing. And then the most interesting thing happened where I had a glimpse into an alternate reality where that did happen, where that prayer was answered. And I was up there and I had that show at the Mirage. And within 6 months, I was dead. Straight up dead. Within 6 months, I was passed out at a bus station in North Vegas with a needle strapped into my arm. Bloated as a frog, dead as a doornail. That was it. Couldn't handle it. Could not handle the fame, could not handle the money, could not handle the adulation, could not handle the pressure to perform every night in front of an amphitheater in Vegas. Couldn't handle it. So went the Chris Farley route, and that was that. I never wanted to awaken. It dragged me into it. It's like, they say the thug life chooses you. It chose me. The awakened life chose me. I was dragged into it kicking and screaming. And then I tried to go back, and then it dragged me again through another dark night of the soul. And then I tried to go back again. It's like, all right. And then the angels, the guides, whatever, like you clearly want to play hardball here. And this is how you want to do it. Let's do it. Let's dance. All right. And then it dragged me again. This time it started beating me over the head with a sack of potatoes and dragging me through health problems and all the rest of it until I finally got it and then surrendered. Like, all right, uncle, you win. You win. We're good. And that was that.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Is that going to be a book?
It already is in some ways. Yeah. Book I wrote during the pandemic called Leaving 2020. And a lot of those themes were explored in that.
Published when?
2020. December 2020.
Title of the book again as well?
The title is Leaving 2020. And it's not a book I talk about anymore. Yeah, Lisa Marie's absolutely right. Literally change the way you look at things, and the things they will literally will change the way they look at you. Like it's this feedback loop is absolutely wild. Scott, my dude, now you want to talk about interview with an NDE survivor. Scott, you sure that's not you? Like this is a guy right here. You want to talk about an incredible story of being on the edge and coming back, and the perseverance to push through that, and to connect with one's own soul and to show that, like this guy right here, Scott Mason, this is the guy. This is the guy. But yeah, I love the comment here that in the interview with a near-death experience survivor who said that the word for the doors, that the great spirit, providence appear to shut on our aspirations and dream is mercy. Oh, that's good. That's good. What do you think of that?
I want to know that story now.
Yeah, Scott, man, we're going to have you on, man, just to share it. First of all, glad you're here. Not only here on this live stream, but here in this third density Earth construct, still Scott Mason. Very happy about that. And I'm not alone in that sentiment. There's a lot of us that are really, really happy you're here, man. You are a beautiful, beautiful bright light. And makes me glad to be here. I get to share this time and space with people like this, It's where the magic is, man. It's have you had those moments when you look around and all these amazing people that are in your life and your ecosystem, close and far away, and you're like, how cool is it I get to share this with you right now?
Yeah, that's been something that I'm perpetually more and more grateful for every day. Like, I recognize that gratitude is the gateway to blessings. And I think you're describing being one of many that have wanted to experience the highs of success, however you care to describe that. But most people, we want much of the same things. Blessings is probably on that, even if we're not necessarily using that word. And gratitude being, the gateway that opens up more of that stuff. But yeah, dude, like it's not just cool people, but it's the people that are with us this evening. Like, I'm so happy and grateful for all of you guys being here. Lisa Marie, Scott, I haven't met both of you guys, I don't think officially. Lisa Marie, I might have talked to you once or twice, but I'm so thankful that you're here. Sia and Isabel, so good to see you. Daniel, thank you guys for being here. Like, this is such an awesome thing. It's the coolness of people that, like, the energy is in harmony. It's like the I think about it like the symphony. Like, if there's one performer in the symphony that is not in tune, or that misses the note, or that, you know, gets something off key or off pitch, it throws the whole energy of the building off.
Yep.
Not just their section and not just the orchestra, but like, you're like, oh, what was that? Like, and we're all performing this beautiful thing of life symphonic music right here, right now in this space. And so, yeah, dude, this is awesome.
Absolutely. And I love this quote here by Scott. You know, gratitude is the gateway to blessings. All day. And I think it's misunderstood a lot. The concept of gratitude, the word, and a lot of people kind of, and I say a lot of people, I was one of them, so I get it. I know the cynicism around that word and around hearing it when you're not in a vibrational place to receive it. If you're bitter, you're pissed off, you're angry, you're frustrated, it's the last thing you want to hear. Like, get out of my face with it. Don't want to hear it. Not interested. Bug out. Let's go. But it's, and honestly, you know what how I used to respond to that? Maybe 6-7 years ago. I'd say, okay, so, I get it now. I get it. So what you're telling me is to eat shit with a smile. That's what you're saying to me. I get, okay. That's what you're, okay, got it. That's what you're trying to get me to do. Okay. Well, you can be, and this is the consciousness I was in. Like, you can be your happy little slave who just takes it from life and doesn't do anything about it and doesn't fight back. And, like, you know, this is the level I'm at this point, and I'm just spewing this back at them. And the idea of gratitude was preposterous to me. Like, how could you be grateful? You should be pissed off about all the things that aren't going right for you. And which is the energy of, like, again, most like rants on LinkedIn these days. It's just, you know, it's like an angry, this isn't going right for me. This isn't going right for society. This isn't going right. And I'm pissed off about it. And this is like, you know, it's that. So if you were to turn around and come to them with that attitude of like, well, you should be grateful, you're going to get that same blowback. And I get it. So I've come to see it a little bit differently now, though. To me, it's the pushback is, well, you know, if you just had, you know, your two hands and your left foot chopped off, you should be grateful for your right foot. And that's not a message that's going to resonate with somebody who just lost 3 limbs. And like, that's a really bad sales job. Instead, if the reframing and coming back to the idea of all of us living this story is, well, what if your story was for this to happen? And you're somehow going to transmute this and come on the other side. And this will like cause you to become like the greatest motivational speaker in the history of the world about this thing that happened. And you will influence generations and generations and generations of people, will spread to the 4 corners of the globe because of your story. And on a metaphysical level, the soul expansion that you will experience because of this will be beyond anything you could hope to imagine. And what that will lead to other lifetimes and other dimensions, all the things is beyond anything you can hope to get your head around. But it could only have happened because that thing happened. And then you can lean into, well, damn, okay, maybe I should be grateful that I've decided to write that in for myself, that I can do that. But if you're just focusing on like a thing that you have versus the essence of what you are, it's a shitty sell, man. So I see it. I get it. I really do.
Yeah, there's a couple pieces here. I think I heard Abraham Hicks talk about how she says you can't get there from there. So if down here is where you are and you're pissed off because something a little bit maybe more tangible that people can relate to, they lost their job and they're getting kicked out of their house, and they just found out that their cousin or sibling has cancer. I mean, those are 3 humongous, terrible things all happening.
And the dog died. You got to throw in a dog death on top of it. That's just,
so 4 terrible things all happening at one time. No, you're not going to shift into this high level of joy and gratitude. You can't get there from there.
Yeah.
But if you can get to some sort of place that is more of a neutral state and an acceptance of this is what is real and this is what is happening right now. I'm not going to resist this crazy BS. I am going to take a deep breath and acknowledge that this is where I am. Acceptance is a higher tier than the denial and the mulling and the frustration and the anger and the resentment and all the pissed offness. It's a little bit higher. So you're able to elevate just a little bit. To me, that reminds me, and it puts some context around Mother Teresa and Gandhi both refused to do something that tons and tons and tons of people asked them to do, which is protest against violence. And both of them said, I'm not going to show up to your protest. If you want to do a rally for peace, tell me and I'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're up here, you can't, this is what you were talking about a minute ago. Once you're up here, you can't go back down to where you were before. That road, there's no road that leads you back down to that place. You can't do it. You have to recognize that you're inviting people to come up to where you are, to be a part of that thing, and to go from, like Wayne Dyer talks about this too. If you want to end cancer in your body, you can't give it any attention. Neville Goddard talks about that too. It's Daniel in the lion's den, allegorically. Like, he didn't go in there and have a conversation with the lions and talk them out of eating him. He turned his attention away from the lions and put it towards the light. We have to do the same thing. And so part of this thing is it is delusional, yes, and that is the way but that's part of this awakening thing. Like, it doesn't, the left side of the mind that wants to rationalize and figure it all out and it makes sense, that doesn't work anymore. That's part of not being able to go back.
That's the wild part, isn't it? It's the old playbook isn't there anymore. It just isn't. It's like a manual for a system that's not being created anymore, for technology that's not even in circulation anymore. You know, somebody's MacBook Pro is crapping out and you show up like, I got you. You whip out the old VCR manual, like, let's dance. All right. And then giving you a look and you're giving them a look and there's a look and there's nothing happening except the look, and the look is warranted because you have the VCR manual. And that's kind of where we are. It's like you gotta hustle your way out. And, you know, if you're in the dumps, man, you just gotta hustle and you gotta grind and you gotta, you know, okay, like 1988 gym trainer from the Valley. Thank you for the pep talk. It's good to have you with us. But no, it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's not it. It's not the thing. It's back in the day, it was this idea of, in order to be, you must do. But it was a total inversion of the truth, which is, in order to do, you must be. And I think for the first time, the rubric is changing and we're shifting into that paradigm now, and more people are understanding it. And the only way I think they can understand it is by the doing that's going nowhere.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that personally?
Man, I'm guessing that your story is probably similar, maybe. But I spent a long time on the perpetual entrepreneurial hamster wheel, following guys that maybe they're well-intentioned now. I don't necessarily think they were 5 or 10 years ago. That's my personal opinion. I like what Gary Vee is doing now. Like, he's got a much different energy. He used to be a super intense psychopath.
Yep.
And, 100 pieces of content a week or some craziness like that. But I was trying to keep up with that methodology. And I bought into this system that a lot of different gurus were using of it. I've got the map. I know I've got it all figured out how to be successful. If you'll do things my way and follow my thing and buy all my little programs, then you can have the success that I've had. But none of those people have walked my path. Mm-hmm. And I might be able to wear an entrepreneurial name tag that's similar to theirs, but I haven't walked their path either. It doesn't work that way. one of the biggest, and he's become a friend of mine over the years, and I'm so grateful for this, but I got to have a conversation with Seth Godin in 2016. And I reached out to him via email because the dude put his email address online, and I'm just a crazy enough hoser to contact somebody and start a conversation. But I've been subscribed to Seth Godin's email, and if you guys probably know who Seth is. He's one of the greatest storytellers, I believe, of our time that has helped transform businesses using the power of storytelling. But one of the things that Seth does, he never really advocates and sells anything that he does. He just puts little anecdotes out there to change the way you think. I mean, he does what Wayne Dyer says. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's what he's doing with his little anecdotes and stuff. And it's all very concise and very poignant. And you're like, wow, I never thought about it that way. To me, I had this epiphany one day. It was like being an entrepreneur, being a business owner. Maybe you can relate to this. I think you can relate to this. Does it feel like you're wandering in the desert? Like the Israelites looking for the promised land, and all these little charlatans are out here trying to sell us their little thing about, I know how to get to the promised land. I've been there. I got the t-shirt. Come follow me. Seth's not doing any of that stuff. He's like, if you'll take one step in this direction, you'll find the way. I believe in you. Well, to me, that was like Moses in the desert. Like, have a little faith in yourself. Have a little faith in the process. Stop trying to fit into the mold of what everybody else is doing. The hacks and the trends lead you to wandering around. Don't do that stuff. Be yourself. So metaphorically, that's been my experience. It's been more about like detaching from guru and influencer crap and doing what we're doing here tonight, which is having deep conversations in a different sort of energetic space that people that are like us and on this wavelength can feel, because all you guys have been saying that tonight, and I appreciate it.
Very much so. Very much so. And that's the cool part about it, is that you create that pocket of consciousness, and it will draw the people in who are meant to be there, who want to be a part of that conversation too. Because what you and I are discussing is what a lot of people are thinking. And a lot of people just don't have the ecosystem around them to have these conversations in person or digitally or wherever. And if they do, they don't happen that often. But when you hear the conversation happening, you want to be a part of it. And I love that. And that's why I love live streams, because I love the fact that we can have this conversation and include people in a broader conversation and have everybody be a part of it and participate in it. And, there's a lot of live streams that will just, put a highlight here and there, but they will never even acknowledge the people there. It's, Lisa Marie is a great live stream. I'll give you another shout out, my friend. Love your live stream, because you make everybody there feel a part of this co-creation. And there's so much magic in that. And, I'm fond of saying this, that there's a misnomer that we are creators. We're not creators. We are creation. We are part and parcel of all of creation that is showing up as these avatars to assist in the co-creation of all of it, as everything. A bee buzzing around is creation. A flower growing is creation. A cold front coming through West Texas and sending you into a tornado shelter, that is creation. All creation, man. It's and we're a part of it. So I think a lot of times when we think of the word creator, we almost like put a wall up between, there are those who create and those who consume. Even those who consume, even the people who are readers, are incredibly important in the creation process, because they're the ones who bear witness to the creation, and they provide the feedback that feeds into more creation. There would be no Path to Perfectia sequel had nobody read the first book. And there had been no third book had nobody read the second. And that's the beauty of the whole thing.
Well, you're touching also on something that I hear some people say. They'll be like, well, D, you're just so creative, and I'm not a creative person. I'm like, do you have breath in your lungs? The simple fact that you have life means that you're a creative person. Your creativeness looks different than mine, possibly. But this is mightier than a lightsaber. Because with this, you can create something more interesting than a flaming, blazing sword that cuts through stuff and you can't do anything else with but chop stuff up.
Yeah. Ask Martin Luther. Ask Karl Marx. Ask a whole lot of people what they could do with one pen.
And then this is mechanical pencil. I'm using this on purpose.
Yeah, even
And
better.
then when you realize that you want it to be different, you use this little thing right here, and you erase and you revise. You can't revise too much with a lightsaber. Once you start writing with that thing, it's pretty permanent.
Show's over. And then all you could do is kind of rebuild from the ashes and from the rubble and build something new all over again. You know, I have had, this is incredible to me. I say it with a straight face. There are friends of mine, women who are mothers, and they've said, I'm not a creative person. You've only created human life, the single most complex organism in the cosmos, but you're not creative. I mean, it's wild what we've drummed into people's minds as what is creation, what is not. And like everybody is, and talk about a story, everybody is the author of their story. Everybody is a co-creator of their own story, and they're part of the creation of the grand story. Like everybody, every last one of them. It's wild.
Dude, I think we could have like another 2 episodes off of that.
Yeah, we might have to.
One of the cool things about these kind of, I mean, this whole show was birthed out of just a crazy idea that popped into my head, and I thought I'm going to ask Geoff about that. And then we had a conversation last week, and I just mentioned it to him, and he's like, yes, we're going to do it. Really based on the fact that we had a really deep conversation that was super engrossing and enlightening and empowering. And I think that what we're really tapping into here when we're asking the question of what's your story, there's a part of this that I think is like shining a light on something that you've said a couple of times tonight. It's been said by several of the folks that are watching and commenting. Thank you guys for your energy and for your participation. We as conscious human beings that are awake and aware, we want to have deep conversations with like-minded people. We don't know how to do that. Or we do, but we don't know that we can ask to have these kinds of conversations. And I've realized over, especially the Christmas holidays was a big example of this. I don't swim in the shallow end. I'll actually drown if I try to swim in the shallow end. And I think that there's more and more of people that are like you and I, that like we're deep people that do deep things, and we want to have deep conversations that don't necessarily have to be like gut wrenching, like, you know, us solving, curing cancer or solving poverty, but like, you know, even if we're telling jokes or talking Star Wars, like, or whatever, like just in-depth stuff that like resonates on like metaphysically deep levels.
Absolutely. You know, it's to me, it's almost like watching the director's cut of a movie with the commentary of the actors while it's unfolding. That's so interesting to me because, you know, at first you watch the movie and, you know, we all grow up and we're not, you know, quote, conscious or whatever you want to call it. We're just kind of going through it. We're just kind of present. We're just kind of there. Even the ones among us who are a little more sensitive and deeper thinkers, we're still just kind of like figuring our way out and playing in the space and like in the clay of what is, of what we perceive to be what is. And that's like watching the movie the first time through, and then even the second time through, a couple times through. But at some point, you just can't watch the same scene anymore without analyzing the scene. You want to understand, like, how did the scene come together? This is a really funny scene. Like, was this actually written in, or just like great comedic actors deciding just to run with it? Because that happens half the time. Do they have to get permits to film here? Do they just kind of run with it? Or, you know, how do they do the special effects for that? You want to know the guts behind it and the bigger picture and what message was the writer trying to get through with this dialogue over here. Like, you can tell the dialogue was meant to be deeper than it first appeared in the movie. Like when you're 8 years old, you don't think about it. But now, like, for the example I always think of is my favorite movie, and people are like weirded out when I say this, but I think you're going to get it. My favorite movie of all time, because I think it is the single greatest metaphor for the human journey, is the Robin Williams movie Hook from 1992.
Rufio. Yeah, dude.
And I think it is, no movie, no arc, no storyline captures the journey better than that, where he starts out as Peter Pan. So that's like, not in the movie, but like conceptually starts out as Peter Pan. And the Peter Pan being in that 5D level of consciousness and that connection with source and that eternal youth, that eternal playfulness and joy and creativity and fun. And then gets sucked into this character called Peter Banning, who becomes a lawyer, becomes a husband, and becomes a dad, and he's a super important guy, and all this, and he gets so sucked into this role, he completely forgets that he's Peter Pan, and that's who he really is, but he forgets it. And as we all do as we get older, we get so sucked into these roles, who we're supposed to be, what our business is, what our responsibilities are, what bills we have to pay, what our brand is going to look like, and we get locked into it, like locked in. But then something magical happens. Something happens in our life, and sometimes we call it a midlife crisis or whatever we want, a spiritual awakening, dark night, whatever you want to call it. It happened with him when he lost his children to Captain Hook. He had to find his way back because that was the only way he was going to get his kids back, is to become Peter Pan again. And he goes through this process of delayering all the crap that he learned that turned him into Peter Banning. So that eventually this moment comes. He has his happy thought. He starts soaring. It's the greatest scene ever. It is triumphant music, and his friends are dancing, and they're happy. They see their friend. Their friend is back. Pan is back. And he gets his kids back. But to me, the best part of the movie really happened after he becomes Peter Pan again. And he's dancing around triumphantly with all of his friends. And he's like rediscovered that spark. But then he looks into his children's eyes, and he realizes he can't stay. He can't stay in Neverland. Now it's time to integrate. To fully integrate the life that he's living now as this character, as Peter Banning, with the magic that he had as Peter Pan, and to sprinkle that pixie dust all over that Peter Banning character. And he looks out the window in the end and he says, the greatest adventure is to live. And that's it.
Where have you been my whole life, Geoff?
Watching Hook.
These breakdowns of the metaphysical truth inside of movies is my bread and butter, man. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dude, you just revolution. I love the movie Hook, but I'm going to watch that again now with a different set of lenses. Thank you.
Bro, it didn't even occur to me until like a couple of years ago, actually. And I was like driving on this road trip to Denver, and these movie scenes just start showing up in my YouTube feed. And that one just hit me like the greatest scene when he like rediscovers his powers and go fly again. And then it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And then I got back to the hotel room that night, and I found the movie and I turned it on, and I love the movie as a kid, but I couldn't tell you why.
So I rewatched that movie about 1.5 years ago, and I was reading a lot of Neville Goddard, and I had this little spark reminder like, hey, watch Hook. You're going to understand. You're going to understand the power of imagination. And when they're sitting at the banquet table and Peter's looking around like, there's nothing here. You guys are all excited about like, there's nothing here. Like, why are you like, you got your forks and your spoon. There's bowls with nothing in them. There's steam and stuff, but what the hell is like, you guys are psychotic. And then suddenly it hits him and he sees the massive feast of all kinds of different stuff all over the place. And it's like, yeah. And then I can't think of the name of the kid, but the kind of like the kind of chubby kid is like
the portly kid with the hat.
Yeah.
Who's that kid?
He's like, oh, Peter, he's doing it. And dude, that gave me the biggest like revelation of this is a picture of what it looks like to live in the end. As a conscious creator, all things that we are envisioning for ourselves that we want to bring into the world in some form or fashion, it all begins within us. But if you can't see it, sometimes it's really hard to believe that it could be possible. And that was what Peter's problem was. Yep. He needed to, like, in his detachment from the magic of Neverland, he forgot how to live in that internal space of happiness and joy and creativity. And he had to go back to that. And also, I'm realizing this in the moment. He couldn't remember how to do that if he stayed around his circle of influence.
Yeah.
He had to be with the Lost Boys to have that influence to whether they're, picking at him and making fun of him or whatever, but getting back and doing what you guys have been talking about in the comments, getting into that energy and into that vibe awakened him to be able to return back consciously.
Absolutely. It's why it's so freaking cool when you're here and everybody who's here on the live stream, when you find those other points of creative consciousness, of like joyful creative consciousness, it has a multiplying factor. It really does. And you look at all like mass movements throughout history too. And, there was a multiplying factor. Like there were people in the 1960s in every single community in America who said there need to be an expansion of civil rights. What we see around us is not okay. This is not cool. We need to actually fulfill the promise of America. But without the multiplying force effect, it was just some person sitting at a dinner table surrounded by family members who thought the other way. And there wasn't much they could do. But when people come together, these little sparks of creation, and this is where the quantum physics comes in, like they find each other and then it expands and then it expands and it grows and more come. And like, this is the cool part of what, and I like to dog LinkedIn a lot. Why not? It's fun. But it does bring a lot of people like this together. And there's such an amazing community that I found here. And I know you have too. And I know many of you in the comments also. And talk about grateful, man, I'm grateful. It's awesome.
Yeah, dude. Well, at some point, I want us to do a deep dive into our favorite movies and explore them for what the stories that they tell that's way outside of what the little log line description is in the Amazon Prime movie description, or what was on the back of you mentioned VHRs. What was on the back of the VHS tape when you got it from Blockbuster?
There's one that comes to mind. Is there what comes to mind for you? There's one besides Hook that comes to mind for me. What's top of mind for you?
Well, I would do a deep dive into.
Okay.
For me, Rocky 3 is my all-time favorite movie.
Oh, it's good. Oh, that's good. That's damn good.
For me, that is the closest picture to what the human story is like. And I don't know, most of us are going to have multiple Rocky 3 sagas throughout our life, unless we do what some people do and we just give up and fold in the towel and don't go back out there again. But sometimes you got to, even when you get to that level of ultra success, when you like, in a way, there's Hook and Rocky 3 have a lot of parallels and similarities to them, because when you reach that level of, you think you're at the top of the mountain and you think that you're unbeatable, and then you find out that you're not. And you talk what you were saying a minute ago about like a minute being hyperbolic, but like when you're in a place of desperation, you can't, how do you be grateful in that moment? Rocky lost just about everything in one night.
Mm-hmm.
He lost his title. He lost his trainer and one of his closest friends. He lost his dignity, and he lost the heart that he thought that he had, and he lost his confidence.
Yep.
Okay, so here's a broken man that doesn't know what to do about it, and then his in the pit of his brokenness, his old opponent shows up and says, "You did it all wrong, man, but I know you've got more in you. So I believe in you. I want you to have a rematch, but let me train you." And then after that, you're going to owe me a favor.
Yeah.
But it's actually not Apollo that gets Rocky back into the ring. It's actually Adrian.
Yep.
And Adrian, to me, represents Rocky's heart all throughout the entire saga, even after she's dead and shows up in a metaphysical sort of way in Rocky Balboa. Like, that's Rocky's heart. Without his heart, he's not Rocky. So, case in point, like, you can't go through life facing challenges and overcoming challenges without this thing in here.
I love that, man. I love that so much. Rocky 3 is so criminally underrated. And if you look at it, they look at it as like they say, that's where the franchise really went off the rails. So that's where the franchise found its heart. I mean, off the rail. Oh, the Hulk Hogan spectacle and Mr. T. Said that's a sideshow. That has nothing to do with anything. Like, that's not the message of the movie at all. Like, it was, yeah, man. It's so good. So damn good. The
And
one
plus,
else,
if you don't have Rocky 3, you don't have Mr. T pitying fools. And
you
that
don't,
revolutionized
man.
the 80s. So
Then what
yeah.
are we doing with our lives? Come on. The one I love is Shawshank Redemption. And I look at the Shawshank Redemption as a metaphor for the human journey through this level of consciousness. So you have Andy Dufresne, and he finds himself in Shawshank. Now he's doing great beforehand. At least he thinks he is, and it turns out life wasn't all that great. But he finds himself in this confined prison. And for somebody who was a very intelligent, learned, accomplished man, who he was, suddenly he's being treated like an animal. So it's almost like the initial fall, if you will. You come from this ethereal place, the void, perfectia, whatever you want to call it, and now you're in this like confined human body with these confined human conditions, and you're growing up, and as Red said, you can't even take a piss without getting say so. And that's kind of how it is through childhood. You can't do anything without people giving you permission to do it. You go from this completely free creature who can do anything you want, go anywhere, be anything, to this very confined human. And you're in a cell. And at first it's extremely difficult, like what childhood isn't. It's just difficult and it's constrictive and it's hard. Now, along the way, you're going to find friends and you're going to find adversaries on your journey. And he finds both in great supply. And he finds the greatest of friends and the worst of adversaries through his journey through Shawshank. But all through this journey, he's not just there frivolously. Now, a lot of times he thinks he is like, I shouldn't be here. I'm an innocent man. This is bullshit. I shouldn't be here. And yet he's serving an important purpose because he's bringing his light into Shawshank, the light that only a man like Andy, with his intelligence and his education, his background, could bring into a place like Shawshank. He builds a library in there, and he's helping the guys do their taxes, and he's helping them figure all these different things out. And he's making the prison a better place for the guys inside of it. And then when he finally escapes, the light that he leaves behind by exposing the warden and exposing all the things that went on back there, and getting the warden taken out of commission, and getting that brutal guard locked up, and all the other things that he's able to do when he finally, goes home to Zihuatanejo, and which would be the human journey back to source consciousness. And of course, where people are there to greet us, and Red greets him there, and Red has his own journey back. But what the light he was able to leave behind in the darkness of Shawshank is the great metaphor for the human journey through Earth, and the light that we can bring from source and put out into the earth before we eventually go home, while it's difficult here, and while it's constrictive, and while at times it can feel like a freaking prison. The magic you can do for those around you who are still in Shawshank is amazing.
Dude, next level stuff, man.
It's fun, huh? Love the movies.
So I'm gonna give you a movie. I'm gonna ask you if you've seen it. Have you ever heard of a movie called Life Itself?
I wish I could say that I have. I got nothing, man.
Okay. There's a handful of Oscar Isaac is one of the stars of it. It's an Amazon original movie, but without giving away any of the premise, the whole story is the story of love as energy, having a human experience. And you said something a little while ago about if you don't have these certain moments in your life that you overcome, then there's not this opportunity for this transformation to happen in your own life that then impacts other people's life. And one of the cool things that happens in this story is kind of the whole story begins with a very traumatic experience and a very just gut-wrenchingly sad experience of a mother gets hit by a bus. And she gives birth to a baby, but the husband, father, goes into this deep, deep depression, and he can't shake himself out of it. And along the way of the next several decades, you see this child grow up and become this person, and trying to come to terms with, why did my father abandon me? Why did my father abandon me? And eventually gets to this place where they meet this person that like is able to communicate this thing like, I'm love and you are love. And if your dad hadn't had this experience that gave birth to you, you wouldn't have gone searching for me.
Wow. Whew, man. Felt those chills. This is another one. Lisa Marie, this is a great one. What Dreams May Come. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
All right. That's
All right, I'm putting it on the list.
Get that one on your list. Let's debrief afterwards. That is that's a very, very, very intense movie. I believe the creator of it was the same person who did Ghost, if I'm not mistaken. It's about the afterlife and all the things around that. And it's definitely not a Robin Williams comedy. That's for damn sure. There's no comedy in that movie whatsoever, but it is a very, very intense deep dive into who we are and what we take with us and how it influences what comes next. I watched that movie during a really dark time in my life, and I was not ready to receive the message of it. I was very hateful, honestly, of the message in the movie at the time for a lot of reasons, but I've come to see what it is. And I believe there's a lot of truth to it. It's a really good movie. Highly recommended. Really, really good stuff.
Okay. Deep stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to do another episode just diving into the movies, man. Just like a whole movie episode. Like what metaphysical movie talk, straight up.
Let's do it.
And I think we should have, this would be fun. We have people put in the promo for the episode, people put their recommendations in the comments, and we talk about any movie they bring in the comments. I don't care if it's Police Academy 4. We talk about it. What are the spiritual implications of Police Academy 4? How does that movie reflect? And we could do it, and like we could with any of them.
I strongly encourage this, and also encourage the suggestion. I mean, Police Academy 4 is be ridiculous in your suggestions, guys.
Please do. So like you name it. Like there's nothing out of bounds here. You know what I mean? You want us to break down meatballs? We'll do it. You know, Major League 2. Debbie Does Dallas. Like nothing's off limits. Let's you know what I mean? Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like let's just do it all. So, you find one and we'll rock it. Because I really believe that all of them have a deep message to it. And I mean, and I'm not even kidding when I say this. People like, there's a comedian. No, dead ass. It could literally do an entire, there it is, Scott Mason with the win, with the mic drop, Showgirls. We could do an entire episode on why Showgirls is a window and a portal into the divine. Arguably the worst movie ever made. One could make that argument credibly. And probably not get a hell of a lot of pushback. And yet you could legitimately break it down. You could talk about what was that? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was about to say Batman and Robin, because to me that's probably the worst movie ever made.
Yeah. And they're both made in 95. What does that say about where we were?
Wow. What does that say about your ability to know when certain movies came out? I'm impressed.
I don't know, man. That's like it's got to be some kind of a spectrum thing. I couldn't tell you. That's all I got. I don't know. I'll leave it to smarter people than me to figure that out. But
man,
scratches are all these metaphors. They really
are. Kudos to you, dude. Like your metaphor there and your humor. I understand why you've gravitated towards Geoff now. It makes even more sense.
This is, it's fun when you dig into it. Let's even just kind of play with it conceptually, right? So Showgirls, you have somebody literally trying to find her way back home. Now you could think, it's back home to Utah to make some money as a showgirl, do the whole thing. But Elizabeth Berkley gets in there. She's lost. She's cast adrift. Like humans are cast adrift here in this third density construct. As these human beings, we're just kind of cast adrift, and we're trying to do whatever we can to find our way back home, to find our way back to source, to find our way, in her case, back to safety, back to security. She's trying to make some money and safety and security, doing the thing that she was given in this character to do. She was given the ability to dance, and to dance really, really well. And that's what she wanted to do. And her way back home was to use the talent that she was given in this character, in this avatar, to do that. And then she finds friends along the way, and she finds adversaries along the way, and she has adversity along the way, and she has triumphs along the way.
Wow.
And people emotionally manipulate her, and she emotionally manipulates people. And all this is happening with a lot of nudity. So like people will watch because it's an objectively terrible movie, but it's all happening as the great metaphor, even Showgirls.
You brought Joseph Campbell's hero's journey into Showgirls, and or maybe you brought Showgirls into, wow, that is a new quantifier of superpower that I was heretofore unaware of. So congratulations.
You know, I'd be lying if I said I had Showgirls as a path to the divine on my bingo card when I woke up today. But here we are. And that's the beauty of the game. You don't know where it'll take you. Thank you, Scott Mason.
This is I feel like we're playing like a metaphoric Tonger game.
Yeah.
I feel like there's an invisible board that we don't know what's actually on it, but we're both lobbing little balls, and it's hitting. So and yes, Scott, I am dishonoring Jeep Swinson's Bane, atrocious in all caps, to the exponential degree. Yeah.
I can just imagine Nomi Malone on LinkedIn. Like, I help you have the greatest bachelor party ever. Like, it'd be awesome. I'm just saying, like, what a headline, right? Just, yeah, be amazing. And like the background there, just like a Las Vegas club, it writes itself. It just, yeah. And then like there'd be a lot of selfies, a lot of selfies, starting with like unpopular opinion about like the whole like, you know, dancing industry with that, and then like a whole, you know, like an 8-page rant followed by agree.
Wasn't there a Showgirls 2?
I hope not.
I think there was.
You know, my faith in humanity is already teetering, man. I don't need a Showgirls to tip that over the edge.
If it takes a Showgirls 2 to tip you over the edge, that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, we're already dancing on the high wire at that point. Well, it's been awesome, guys.
Yes,
truly. And we will do another one of these in short order. We're gonna chop it up. And I like the idea of keeping with a movie theme. So we'll keep y'all posted, and we'll tag everybody here in the comments when we announce the next event. So if you guys can pop by again, love to see it, love to have you. D Grant, it's been an honor, bro. Truly.
Oh, likewise, my friend. Thank you. This was better than I could have asked for or imagined. I really appreciate you.
And each and every one of you here, appreciate you so much. Love you all to perfect and back. Enjoy the evening, friends.